So today I have the task of speaking to you about a well-balanced professional. And up front, I'm going to tell you that this is an ongoing process. A well-balanced professional never ever reaches a point where they say, I've reached. Okay, so I'm going to start off with that by saying that this is a process. You would have heard many, many times that the most constant thing we have in our lives is change. And because of this very, very important contributor to our lives, we can never ever reach a point of saying, I have a well-balanced life. Challenges will always come our way. Okay. Okay, so what is a balanced work life? It's not about splitting your time 50-50 between your work life and your personal life, but it's about making sure you feel fulfilled and content in both areas of your life. Interns, Dr. Reddy said something very important when she started off her session, and she said that this summit is about you. So in saying that, a well-balanced life is dependent on the individual. Okay, the factors that we have in our lives that affects our lives, still ultimately the responsibility of being able to manage that life is the task of the individual. So, like I started off saying, a well-balanced life is not an achievement. So when you feel like I've got everything under control, it does not necessarily mean you've reached. It is cycles of changes both in your personal life and work life that you manage on an ongoing basis to bring about the balance. So there's areas in our lives that will always be challenged. If you have a family, if you're married, if you've got children, if you've got parents, you're always going to have challenges. If you're at the workplace, you're definitely going to have challenges. New projects, your own deadlines, new managers, new CFOs entering your business, entering your department, all of those things are challenges that we face. People we sometimes like, people we sometimes don't like, things we are comfortable, spaces that we're comfortable in, are all things that become the change factors in our lives that we've got to be able to manage and balance ultimately. So in saying that, always remember a well-balanced life is done by the individual and not the external factors that contribute to a person's life. Paul Kresner said that anthropologists often define happiness as having little or no differentiation between an individual's professional and personal life. That means that your happy place should not be when you're knocking off at 4:30 or 5 o'clock and say, I'm going home. And neither should it be every morning when you're leaving to work that you say, I'm going to my happy place. Your life should be balanced in that you are happy at work and happy in your own personal life. Now, that sometimes becomes the challenge because we sometimes feel burnout in either area, either in your personal life or in your workplace. You feel the burnout. You start to dislike that area of your life, and that's where we get the imbalance. And in saying that, that is why it's important that you tend to love your job. Your job is an extension of who you are. And that's what brings balance between your personal life and your workplace. That you begin to understand, I'm an extension of who I am. My job is like that. My family is like that. My hobbies and what I like to do is like that. My friends and the company I want to be around is like that, where everything is an extension of who I am. Okay, Now, a very important concept that many people speak about these days, and which plays a critical part in our workplace especially, is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a measure of how well we understand our emotions and the emotions of others. It is a fundamental driver of a human being's behavior. So ultimately, how you feel and the emotions you are feeling will determine how you behave. So that's one aspect of emotional intelligence. But the second very important contributor is how you understand why another person is feeling like that. That will determine why the person behaves like that, but it will also determine how you respond to that person. So it is important for you to understand how you are feeling. It plays a critical part in the workplace. If a person is not happy in the workplace, remember, for 8 hours of the day, that means you are unhappy. You've got 8 hours then to go home or be with your friends and be happy, and you've got another 8 hours to sleep. Okay. So 1/3 of your day, if you are not feeling happy, it's going to impact on the other areas of your life. And it works the other way as well. If you are not happy at home, and we sometimes go through challenges at home, it's normal human processes in life. We are unhappy at times. We go through issues. We feel things. We're unhappy. Our kids get us upset. Our parents get us upset. Our siblings get us upset. There's all of these extensions into our lives that can sometimes bring us to a place of not being happy. But in saying that, when we are not happy in the work front, at the home front, it affects the work front. You're going to come to work and you're not going to be happy. Your mind is not going to be focused. And remember, at the workplace, you are not measured on time. Even though timekeeping is an important aspect, we want you to arrive on time and we want you to meet deadlines. Remember, at the workplace, you measured on performance. But if you're unhappy, are you going to be able to deliver? No, we're not. We're going to be distracted. And so that is why it's important that you understand the feelings of yourself and the feelings of others. Okay. Now, emotional intelligence is important. You got to remember 4 critical points on emotional intelligence. One being that you got to understand it. You got to know whether a person is happy or sad. You got to understand why it's happening, okay? So the first one is understanding. The next one is you got to use emotions. You got to be able to express yourself. And that does not mean throwing your book at somebody or your pen at somebody. It's not that. But it's being able, even in the workplace, to be able to sit down with your superior or your supervisor or your manager and be able to say, I'm not happy about this. I am happy about this. Now, emotional intelligence is not only about being unhappy, it's about also being happy. And that brings the work balance. So if you are being motivated, if you are being rewarded, you gotta express that. Because when you express it, then the person that's been giving you the rewards or giving you the motivation understands this is where the person ticks. He knows what you require. He knows what's going to give us the ultimate output in the workplace. So you must be expressive of it. Little things like thank you, sorry, please, all of those mannerisms are important for us to be able to express ourselves. So we must be able to express ourselves. That too on the home front or in your personal life, you must be able to express. Because if you don't and you're being bottled up, you're going to eventually have a breakdown. You're going to eventually have an imbalance. You're definitely going to have what the world terms as burnout. You're going to feel it because of the fact that you haven't been able along the way to say, this is too much for me, or you know what, I can't do this, or this is beyond me, or I don't have the space to do it. That is why expressing ourselves and being able to use emotions is important. Okay, the next one is perceiving it. And this is important for us to develop into a place where we don't just remain as interns. We're going to go into formal workplaces. We're going to, in a few years, be promoted, supervisors and managers and directors and all of those levels. We must be able to perceive emotions. You must be able to understand that another person is not within their own space. They're not their normal selves. So you must be able to see that. You must be able to learn and understand and see that it's not only sometimes about yourself. That's why emotional intelligence is twofold. It's about understanding your own emotions, but at the same time understanding the emotions of the next person. So in saying that, you must be able to perceive, know why the person is feeling like that. Yes, we reprimanded the person. They've gone through a disciplinary hearing. They've gone through some kind of change in their life, whether they had a death in the family or whatever the case is. There's a change, there's a birth in the family. They've just been new parents. Whatever the case is, you must be able to perceive why is that person within the space. Okay, as a leader, it's important because when you understand that, you won't approach the person on the level that you are, but you will rather begin to approach the person on the level that they are currently in. Because if you approach as a leader the person from your space, believe me, the only thing you want to hear is, where's the output? You want to see the output. You don't want to hear anything else. You don't want to see anything else. And that sometimes can be more detrimental to the person and to the entire organization than just to you just saying, I need the output. So as a leader and as somebody that's being developed into having, into growing and to becoming, moving on from just being an intern, you have to learn to perceive others. Also important is that we perceive others, even our own team members. So even on this level as interns, you're working with other interns, you're working with people above you, you're working with people that probably in the organization are ranked in terms of the job that they do is probably a lower job. They don't have a qualification, they don't have a degree, they don't have things like that. And you're working with all different types of people. But ultimately, you've got to be able to perceive why isn't this person in the space they're supposed to be, and then approach them with that. That's also going to bring a balance into your own life. Because let me tell you that if you are approaching somebody from your level and from your space, and you don't approach them from the space they require, you're going to be just as unhappy or frustrated as they are. Because eventually you're not going to understand, why am I not getting what I want? Why am I not getting what's required? And the reason being is because you're approaching the person by not understanding the space that they're within. And then the last thing is being able to manage emotions. You've got to manage emotions. Every one of us has to manage our emotions. As much as emotions play such an important role and it's so integral into a person, it's important for you to manage it. You've got to be able to know that it's not personal at work. It's not personal. If your manager has to reprimand you, it's not personal. You don't get frustrated. You don't say, no, it's because I'm wearing black today. That's why he's frustrated with me. It's not his favorite color. It has nothing to do with that. And most people get it wrong here, is that we take things too personal. And in the work front, and you gotta learn it, and it's good that we're speaking about it when you guys are still interns, but we gotta learn it here that everything is not personal. Everything is not personal, and you gotta manage it. You gotta look at it from the sense that this is my job, this is the output, this is the performance that's required of me, and this is what I've got to deliver on. And it has nothing to do with what I'm wearing, what I drive, where I live, who's my brother, who's my sister, whether I like KFC or Nando's. It doesn't have to do with any of those things. But it has to do with the fact that there is a deliverable required of me, and this is what I've got to give out of. And we've got to learn it early in our career paths, because this is what will determine later on the type of manager you would be. Okay. Sorry, I skipped a slide. Okay, so these are the core components of emotional intelligence, and I'm going to go through this quickly in saying that these are the fundamentals. This is what determines a person's emotions. This is what determines how a person behaves. Okay, and it's something that we all got to look at and we all got to understand. Self-awareness is the first one. You got to give awareness to yourself. You got to know in which space you are. You got to know who you are. You got to know what's my strengths, what's my weaknesses. You got to be able to know that this is what I want to achieve. These are my goals for myself personally. And that's self-awareness, because self-awareness can be a big driver of where you go. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then the next thing is self-regulations, and this is what governs us. These are our value systems that we have, and our value systems at which we've been raised by, and the value systems by which we live by. Important points were brought about by Dr. Reddy when she spoke about ethics. That's a self-regulator. That's an example of a self-regulator. If you're an ethical person, you're definitely going to be the type of person that's going to do things right. So if you're doing things right, you're going to be in very minimal conflict, unless you become the person on the other side. So you're going to be in conflict with the person that's doing the wrong. But in most cases, self-regulators are people that live ethically. They're loyal. They're committed. They are the ones that are able to govern themselves. Okay, they have self-governance. So you must be able to know these are the things that governs me, these are my values, these are the things that drive me, and those are the things that will enhance what I call your work-life balance. It's going to enhance that because you're going to know who you are. Then empathy is how do we treat other people? It's just putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. And very, very important is that you would see managers sometimes lack it, but it is what's required. Sometimes you've just got to put yourself in somebody else's shoe. Then you know how to treat the person. Then you know what's wrong, why it's being done that way. All of those questions are asked. And so putting yourself in somebody else's shoes is important. Then motivation. Motivation must be, whether it's telling even somebody on the same level as you, thank you, good job, that kind of thing, it's a self-motivator. Now guys, self-motivator or motivation is not always on your paycheck. So it's not always rewarded in remuneration, but it's these little gestures that sometimes does a world of good. It does a world of good for a person just to know I've been appreciated. So that's what motivation does. It shows appreciation. It shows recognition. It shows that I noticed that you've done something better than I could have done. And so sometimes that's what's needed. We need to motivate. We need to motivate each other irrespective of the levels we're on. And then the last one is our social skills. And that's just, sometimes in an organization, we miss the part about just being able to greet somebody. We miss the part about just being able to just take your lunch break and chat to somebody. But in the organization, remember, like I said, we spent 8 hours there. That's a long time, guys, 8 hours, okay? And in order sometimes to avoid what we call burnout, we must be able to sometimes just be able to sit down and have a chat. That goes for your workplace, that goes for your own personal life. You sometimes need that. We cannot always be a little hermit, neither can we always be an introvert. We sometimes just need to let go, just be ourselves. Take a trip to the beach, take a walk in the park. Those kind of things are social skills, and sometimes we need it. We need it, otherwise we are going to experience burnout. Okay, so your mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. A very important, a common proverb, as a man thinks, so is he. So how you think is one of the most fundamental players of how you will behave. How you think will determine the type of work you give to your supervisor or to your manager or to your organization. How you think will determine how you raise your child. How you think will determine how you approach your spouse. So everything revolves around how you think and not necessarily about how somebody or what somebody thinks of me. That is not the contributor of your mental state of mind. The main thing is, how do you think? Who do you think you are? Do you think, am I an achiever? Can I do better? Can I do this in another way? Is this better? Is this easier? How you think is going to determine the output you give in all areas of your life. Okay. It determines how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood to adolescence, right through to adulthood. It says a healthy mind is a healthy life. So how you think is going to determine your overall condition of your life. So if you are a person that thinks negatively, if you are a person that's you think, oh, no, it's somebody else's job, let them do it, that kind of thing, then you're going to end up being like that. You're going to end up being exactly that. If you think it's somebody else's job, it's going to become somebody else's job, and that person's going to run the race a little faster than you are. Okay, so how you think about yourself, the things you think about, a certain situation, whatever you're going through, even in your personal life, just say there's a death in your family. How you handle that is going to determine the balance or the imbalance. And some people, it's going to take you a month to get over a death. And some people 6, and some people 10 years later, they're still mourning. But irrespective of that, the individual, and the onus is on the individual to be able to bring about the balance in their life. That's why I say the balanced life is not achievable. We can maintain, but there's always going to be incidents that come in, that change it, and we've got to be able to manage that. That's the important thing, is about understanding how to manage a balanced life. So, before I go to the tips to improve your work life, I'm going to speak to you a little bit about how, over the years, we've seen how work balances have changed. And you know what they call the baby boomers? Do you all know the baby boomers? I don't know if there's any in the room. Could be. So they're generally the people born between the 1945 to 1960s. Okay, if it's going to be any of these baby boomers, it's going to be some of the speakers maybe. I don't think the interns are in that category, definitely. Okay, but they call the baby boomers, and if you looked at their work ethics in that era, you would see a lot of them were very, very hardworking. Very, very hardworking. That is why when you look at and you speak to an older person, speak to your grandparents, not even your parents, they don't even fit some of them into that category, but maybe your grandparents, you will see that their work ethics is very, very different. Their lifestyle was based on loyalty. So you would see they will start in the company and end in the company. They will stay there for their entire duration of their work life, because for them the important thing was, and the driver for them was, sustenance and keeping my family happy. The work then was not it was difficult because there was a lot of manpower and not literally what we see today, machines and technology doing a lot of our work. But they lived their lives going to work and being able to just provide for their families. So their balanced life was very much so-called balanced. They went to work, got home, went to work, got home, and the weekends was for family. If my roof fell over my head, I'll call my neighbor. He had the skill. And that's how they lived. Whereas now, my roof falls, I've got to phone my insurer first, and then I've got to phone a repair company, maintenance repairs, and all of that. Whereas before, the stress levels were much less. Okay. And those were the baby boomers. Then we had Generation X, and they were from 1961 right up to 1980. And you'd see this group of people, they were very, very much involved in progressing. They wanted to get things done. They wanted to see things done. They're the type of people that looked for a lot of family time. So they were the ones that introduced all of these things, maternity leave and paternity leave and number of days of leave, because they wanted that. They wanted a balance between the work life and the family life. Because they've learned from their parents, who were the baby boomers, that you work hard, you work the long hours, you do all of that to bring sustenance into your personal life. So these guys learned from them and said, no, we need some vacation, we need all of that. So you saw a bit of balance in them, but they were very much motivated to get things done, go to work, make things better for their kids, and all of those things. So that's the group that we call the Generation X. Then we got what we call the millennials. And I think that incorporates all of you in this room. Now, important, you guys make up about 1/4 of our workforce. You make about 1/4 of our workforce. So the other 3/4 are the baby boomers and the Generation X. So you play a critical role. Now, negatively on you guys is that you guys are one of the most unethical generations the world has ever seen. And so I'm happy that Dr. Reddy did her session before me, okay, because she already told you what you need to be. And it's important because one of the drivers, and that is why we see this generation that cannot balance their work life and their personal lives, is because ethics plays such a minimal point in their lives. It's minimal. There's no loyalty. We'd leave a job for 1,000 rand more. Huh? We leave our families for 1,000 rand more. Huh? We'll move to another province for 1,000 rand more. Understand? And that's the generation we are. We're an unethical generation. And it's sorry that we had to blanket everybody in that, because not everybody is like that. Yeah, Spoo had to let out his the year he was born, so he's also part of this generation. Okay? But the generation is, the stress levels that this generation feels is much more than the other two generations I've just spoken about. And that is why you see so many people talk about now work balance, emotional intelligence. We see businesses, big businesses like IBM and Google and Microsoft and all of these big companies, they've got gyms and what is this, a creche and all of those things on site, because they have to try to retain this generation. They do all of that to make us feel good, to make us feel nice, to make us think, yes, everything is given to you. And so sometimes the generation becomes an entitled generation. We become so entitled that when we don't get what we want, our lives are in an imbalance. And that's one of the biggest contributors to why today we see mental health being so, pronounced everywhere. Mental health becomes such a big thing. Most medical aids, if you look at it, they have a portion of contribution towards you getting psychological help and all of these things. And the reason being is that the generation is not doing what the other two generations did. And ethics plays the most fundamental thing. We see the most amount of corruption from 1981 to now. I know some of you are saying I was only born in 1981, but the point of the matter being is that in these years we see all of this because it's a generation that's become entitled, it's a generation that wants more and more and more. And they don't know how to sometimes balance it. An unethical person, believe me, is one of the most stressed people on the earth. Because you got to try to cover it all up. That's not sometimes very easy. So to end off, I'm going to give you some tips on how to improve your work-life balance. And when you're looking at these points, please remember that you got to apply it to your work and to your own personal life. Okay, the first one is learn to say no. Focus on what is priority. So when you say no, you got to say no to the unethics. You got to say no to taking on something that's beyond your scope of work sometimes, because you don't probably have the skill to do it and all of that. So don't try to impress every single person. It's sometimes nice. If you're able to do it, you must do it, but you've got to learn to say no. If you've got other deadlines, you don't say no to, okay, let me go to a 4-day ship cruise when you've got deadlines to meet at work. You're definitely going to come back and you're going to have big problems, especially if I'm the HR manager. Okay, so focus on what is priority. You got to learn to prioritize. You got to know what's important. You got to know what's due when. You got to know how to schedule yourself. Okay. 2, take a break in between tasks. So sometimes you got to need a 5-minute break. Y'all were lucky this morning, y'all had a half an hour break. Okay? So 5-minute break now and then is good. Take your lunch break sometimes. You don't have to take it at exactly 12 o'clock if that's your lunch break and say, okay, I stopped working, because that's not how it works. And say, oh, but I'm entitled to a lunch break. Sometimes you're going to take your lunch break an hour later or whatever, but what I'm saying is take a break. You need a break sometimes. You got to move away from your desk. You got to breathe some fresh air. Take a break. Okay. And prioritize your health. Physical health, emotional well-being, and mental fitness is important for overall welfare. So we don't just look at one aspect of our life and say, okay, I've got it all right. There's contributors. It's your physical, emotional, and your mental fitness for your overall health. So you got to be able to exercise, what you eat, what you drink, all of those things, your time management, all of that, prioritize that, because that contributes to your health. Okay. Self-compassion, let go of perfection. Okay. So not everything has to be perfect. Sometimes give a break to yourself. You put too much of pressure sometimes on ourselves. And one of the reasons we do this is because all of us want to be the top star. Okay. But sometimes just relax. Okay. 5, set time boundaries so you can balance your time between work and personal life. And that's important. It's time management. It's a session on its own, time management. But you got to be able to say, this is what's due when, this is what I need to do. I need to leave work early today, so I need to come in early maybe to finish up what I need to do to go home early. Those kind of things. We want to be able to become this professional, this well-balanced professional. One of the fundamental things is be able to manage your time. If you can't manage your time, there's no balance. It's the main thing. One of the reasons we go into burnout, one of the reasons we stress, one of the reasons we can't get things done, and all of those things is because we don't manage our time adequately. Okay, 6 is invest in your relationships. So that's your family, your spouse, your children, your parents. Also your relationships at work, you gotta invest in it. You gotta be able to do the little things like I said. You gotta be able to express yourself at work. You gotta be able to tap somebody on the back. You gotta be able to say, you've done well. I'm sorry, all of those little things, you gotta be able to invest in your relationship. You gotta make time for relationships, okay? Make space for family time, that goes with point number 6. And number 8, start small. Small changes can make a big difference. Don't try doing everything at once, okay? It's not gonna work, okay? You gotta take things slow sometimes. You got to start small. The main thing they always say is a journey of 100 miles starts with 1 step. Okay, so 1 step at a time. And the last one, important, is ask for help. Most times, and I experience this myself with interns especially, you want to impress us. Don't impress us. We know you're coming out of campus. We know you don't know some things. Just ask for help. Whether you ask your superior or whether you're asking somebody else on the same level as you, whatever the case is, ask for help. We spend so much of time sometimes trying to figuring things out, stressing ourselves when it's not right, and doing all of these unnecessary things when all we could have just said is, I don't know, can you help me? And it's important. Interns, this is one of the fundamental things you need to get right. Ask for help. Clarify things. Make sure that you've got the instruction that came to you absolutely clear. And you know what? I don't think there's any manager, unless he's going through his own emotions or she's going through her own emotions, that's going to tell you, I can't help you. Because with interns, it's important for you to understand that we already know that your knowledge is quite limited. You're coming straight out of campus. So we don't expect you to know everything, but what we do expect is for you to learn and grow and ask and learn again and redo and get it right. Okay, so to end off, I just want to say that your balanced work life is dependent on you. Okay, thank you.